I'm tired of health advice that doesn't take people's context into account. We often tell people to eat healthier, to exercise more, to make better choices when it comes to their health. But what we often overlook is the fact that people's health choices don't exist in a vacuum. There is this quote that I live by, and it informs my practice and my work. And it says that it's much more important to know what sort of a patient has a disease than what sort of a disease a patient has. For me, the emphasis of this quote is that people exist in context, and it emphasizes the importance of contextualized healthcare. As individuals, we are products of our surroundings, we are products of our lived experiences, products of our histories, even. And all of these factors, they affect and they influence our health. And I'm not saying this to say that we shouldn't take care of ourselves. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there's so many things that will influence a person's health beyond their biology and beyond their behavioral factors. And there's a lot of health advice that's available on the internet that does not take that into account. Even in healthcare spaces, that kind of forgets that a person is a person in context. So all of these things that we engage with, we interact with on a daily basis, they will influence the health choices that you have to make, or the health choices that you are able to make. So it is something that I like to caution people against, that there's so much more to health than just saying, hey, eat vegetables every day, or have green juices, do this, go exercise, without actually taking into account the fact that there's so many other factors that are influencing people's health choices on a daily basis. A really good case study for me that reminds us that our health choices really don't exist in a vacuum. It's that listeriosis outbreak that we had in 2017 and 2018 here in South Africa. And what we saw with that particular outbreak is that we had this polony, right, that was the main source of listeriosis. The polony was made by Enterprise Foods, one of their facilities in Polokwane. And what do we know about polony? It's a cheaper end processed meat that people buy. And often it's bought by people that usually will have financial constraints. So the people that were mainly affected by this outbreak were people that were vulnerable and people that were poor. So this product it's bought by people that aren't necessarily just making poor choices. It's people whose affordability is shaping their choices or shaping their options. And it was a really good case study, because then now you're seeing so many things in parallel. You're seeing that, a person's socioeconomic status really does play a role in the kind of food that they're going to buy, the kind of choices that they are able to make. But also it was a systemic issue, because we do have a weakness, like our system and our food regulatory practices and policies, they're not enforced that much in South Africa. So there was that weakness in food safety oversight, right? Whereby now there's poor food regulations and a lot of big corporations are able to get away with quite a lot. I mean, another example where there was a food issue that's also related to something that's structural, that's big, that's influencing people's health, it was with Nestle, and how Nestle is allegedly selling baby food that has high sugar content to low and middle income countries, but they don't do the same thing when it comes to high income countries. Again, it's another thing that shows you that there's this structural thing. Because our government is not regulating all these products properly, it tends to affect people that will have no other option but to actually buy these products. So yeah, it's something that we tend to overlook, and we tend to not really pay attention to, that there's so many things that will limit and that will play a role in the type of choices that a person will make. You could think of, for instance, somebody who has to work in the city center of Cape Town, who maybe has a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. shift, and they live in the Cape Flats. So obviously that person will have to leave home at around 4 a.m. in the morning, probably get back home again at 9 p.m. And then you tell that same person to go and buy fresh produce every second day. With what time? When are they supposed to do that? With what money? You tell that same person, go and exercise. When? How often are they going to be able to exercise? In what area are they going to be able to exercise? Is it safe where they live and stuff like that? All these things, they sound really basic, but you realize how much people tend to overlook them when they are giving you advice, when they are counseling you, or when they are telling you what you need to do to be fine and to be better. They overlook the importance of context, and they tend to overly individualize health. And health, unfortunately, it's not an individual thing. It's very systemic. I mean, even beyond food, we can talk about food, but it's not just about food. We see it with access to health information, with health literacy, even education levels, they play a very big role in a person's health or health outcomes. Even with health messaging, even with me, with the work that I do, where I'm very involved in health promotion through health education, with health messaging, usually there's that general assumption that we make, and you need to keep it in check. There's that general assumption that we make that assumes that, number one, people can access the health messaging that you're providing. Number two, people can understand it. The third assumption is that people can act on it, which is not always the reality of the situation. And it's often the limitation in actually seeing or improving health outcomes in communities. But I say this to not take away the responsibility from the individuals or to overly place it on factors that are beyond them. But I think it's very important to recognize structural factors that will influence your health outcomes, that will influence the kind of life or quality of life that you lead. And it's not just for poor people, because there are also commercial determinants of health, right? Like, for instance, we're getting adverts on alcohol and all of these things. So you could be sitting in your fancy house in Constantia thinking, oh no, I make better decisions. Oh no, look at me. But now you find that you are a victim of all of these things, because chances are that you're getting all these adverts that are kind of like programming your mind and thinking about health in a certain way that you might overlook, right? So I'm saying that it's important to recognize structural factors that also play a role in people's health and health outcomes and health choices. But it doesn't mean that individuals have no agency. We do have a sense of agency in some things. We can control certain things. It simply means that we shouldn't ignore context when we talk about health. It is very important. And that if certain things are within your control, and you have the privilege to act on them, it's still very important to do so. I'm not saying relinquish responsibility to other things that are beyond you, but it is something you need to take into account, even when sometimes it's very hard to make certain changes. It's because there are other forces that are working against you in order for you to be able to do that. So if we really, really want to improve population health, we need to stop asking, why don't people make better choices? And I think one of the main questions we need to ask is, what choices are available to them? Yeah.